Hello, my name's Matt and this is Pixel Burn, where I take a look at some of the more important, interesting or irritating things to have happened in gaming news this week, but not before I apologise for the shameful lack of a Pixel Burn episode last week. Right, that's that out of the way with, on with the show. Lucky American gamers were able to spend a good chunk of this week riding giant robots, parkouring around and generally blowing the ever-loving crap out of each other in Titanfall on PC and Xbox One. Europeans meanwhile had to wait 2 more days, while us miserable plebs in the UK couldn't jump into the fray until the 14th, even if we bought a digital version, because Earth's oceans somehow also magically exist on the internet, for reasons so stupid they make me want to smash my head to a red wet pulp between 2 concrete blocks. Oh well, at least it lets EA scale their server capacity up or down in order to better cope with the demand. Oh, I shouldn't laugh really, as launches go, Titanfall has actually been one of the smoother ones in recent years, going off without too much of a hitch or anyone complaining that it's a broken buggy piece of codswallop. Battlefield! If you're not playing Titanfall, you may very well be playing Dark Souls 2, which also came out this week. Not that you ever need to ask a Dark Souls fan if they're playing it, because they'll gladly tell you every 10 seconds, right up until you finally snap and start thrashing their genitals with a stick covered in wasps. Even then they'll just complain you're not hurting them as well as Dark Souls does. Because Dark Souls is all the joy of your childhood memories playing The Legend of Zelda, blended with all the pain of a night out at Torture Garden. Also, Dark Souls fans would have us all believe. No, I still haven't played Dark Souls 1 yet. Yes, I probably will eventually. Stop bloody harping on about it. Anyhow, only PS3 and 360 owners are able to enjoy Dark Souls 2 right now, as the PC version isn't due until April 25th. In the best of all possible worlds, this delay would be to hone and polish the PC version of Dark Souls 2 and to tailor it to the hardware, just the way From Software didn't whatsoever ever for the PC version of Dark Souls 1, a port reputedly so lazy it took only a single modder working in his spare time to bring it up to scratch. According to Dark Souls 2 producer Takeshi Miyazoe, however, From Software is actually putting in the effort this time round, with support for higher resolutions, higher frame rates and other PC-only goodness. And if you're not playing either Titanfall or Dark Souls 2, you might be playing Hearthstone, which is now out of beta and has been officially released for PC and Mac. For the uninitiated, it's an online collectible card game in the vein of Magic the Gathering, Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! And is supposedly just as compelling, because we can't say games are addictive anymore. I won't be playing it myself as I don't care much for CCGs in any form and I really don't have the time to dedicate to it. But if you like that sort of thing and you avoided the open beta for some deeply personal reason, you can now pit decks of virtual cards against other decks of virtual cards to your heart's content. It's technically free to play in that it won't cost you anything to download, although however many packs of virtual cards you buy in the in-game store is your own prerogative. So don't come running to me if you wind up cold and starving because you spent all your money on an epic Murloc. A game we won't be playing anytime soon, or indeed anytime this year, is The Witcher 3. Originally scheduled for release towards the end of 2014, the game has now been delayed until February 2015. According to a statement issued by the board at CD Projekt Red, extra time will be used to polish the game to a level of quality they're satisfied with, and the level of quality expected by fans. Probably a good thing too, given the game's complexity and scale, and with it being open world to boot. As well as gamers and fans, CD Projekt Red also addressed their shareholders to reassure them the decision was equally valid in business terms, and that the wait would also be worth it financially. While I am a bit miffed at not finishing Geralt of Rivia's story as soon as I would like, in this era of day one patches and unfinished games, it's almost comforting, in a way, for a company to come out and say this. Not that every delay is automatically an indicator of care, attention or quality, of course, Duke Nukem Forever being a whopping great case in point. However, it will be worth the wait if it means Witcher 3 won't be riddled with a Skyrim level of bugs at launch. Some people who might be happy with the news of Witcher 3's delay is BioWare, whose third installment in the Dragon Age series, Dragon Age Inquisition, now won't have any serious competition when it launches sometime in autumn this year, assuming that doesn't get delayed again. In the meantime, I could finally get around to playing Dragon Age 2, assuming I can reinstall EA's Origin client without feeling so dirty I want to cut all my skin off and burn it in a trash barrel. That, or I could actually get my arse in gear and play Dark Souls for my gritty RPG fix. And it's not like there aren't any other exciting games at all coming out this year, unless they all get delayed, but what are the chances of that happening? Besides Witcher 3 having a few more months worth of spit and polish, some other good news to come out of this is that Cyberpunk 2077 won't be at all affected by this delay. what with a completely different team working on it and all that. Considering Cyberpunk is still a good number of years away, however, this really doesn't make much of a difference anyhow. Kinda like being told Christmas won't be late this year. Speaking of games due for release at some murky unspecified date in the future, the technical alpha for Heroes of the Storm has been released, and a wave of lucky people were invited to playtest it. I wasn't one of them. Heroes of the Storm, for those of you who don't know, is Blizzard's own attempt to muscle in on the popular multiplayer online battle arena genre, or MOBA for short. A genre currently dominated by Riot Games' League of Legends and Valve's Dota 2, with League of Legends being the slightly more popular of the two. Other MOBA and MOBA-like games are also available, such as Awesome Nauts, Airmech, Smite and Infinite Crisis, to name but a few. There's also a town called MOBA in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but that has nothing whatsoever to do with MOBA games, unless there's secretly a massive League of Legends scene there. With a growing number of MOBAs to choose from, the two biggest having the lion's share of the market, Blizzard has to pull off something rather special to attract the attention of people outside its own rabid hardcore fanbase. To bring in the MOBA veterans, it needs to provide a similar level of strategic depth to League of Legends or Dota 2, while at the same time, they also need to make it accessible enough to bring in new people into the genre. If they make it too much like League or Dota, however, they'll only be appealing to an audience that already has a MOBA of choice, whereas if they make it too simple, they risk losing much of the strategic depth that make MOBAs so appealing in the first place. Fortunately for Blizzard, one thing they've always been good at is taking pre-existing genres and concepts they didn't invent and refining them into accessible experiences with a decent amount of depth. For example, they took the unforgiving gameplay, interminable grind and quasi-impenetrable game mechanics of EverQuest and boiled them all down to create World of Warcraft, still the most successful massively multiplayer online role-playing game to date. StarCraft, meanwhile, for all its delicate balance issues, is still the most popular iterative refinement of the real-time strategy genre, created in 1992 by Westwood Studios with Doom 2 Battle for Arrakis. The Diablo series distilled the RPG genre down to nuts and bolts hack and slash dungeon crawling for epic loot. And finally, Blackthorn is the ultimate iteration of firing a shotgun over your shoulder at someone behind you without looking where you're shooting, like a stone cold 1980s action movie badass. And from what's been shown of Heroes of the Storm so far, Blizzard indeed appears to have applied their knack of streamlining and refinement to the MOBA genre, or hero brawler as they're calling it, just to be all contrary. Like other MOBAs, there are lanes, towers, allied creeps, 2 teams of 5 heroes with special abilities and a base structure to destroy to win the match. Instead of each hero levelling up individually, however, the entire team levels up as one at the same time. There are also no shops and no gold to be earned, meaning no last hits to constantly miss, and no purchasing of items to agonise over. Bonuses and abilities you would otherwise get from items in-game have instead been made part of the levelling system. So as you level up, you pick and choose extra passive and active powers to suit your playstyle. Heroes of the Storm also has multiple maps like League of Legends. While the main objective is always the same, to destroy the enemy base, each map in Heroes of the Storm has a unique secondary objective that can help you accomplish it more effectively, or turn the game around if you're losing. Blizzard aren't the first to try and make the MOBA genre more accessible to new players. Valve have tried to do it with Dota 2 with mixed to positive results. Dota 2 has solid tutorials and plenty of aids for new players, but it's still constrained by the Dota name, which carries with it a certain expectation of complexity. Heroes of the Storm, on the other hand, isn't bound by those same restrictions, allowing Blizzard to take more liberties with the concept of what a MOBA is or should be. And I think that is a great thing for MOBAs as a whole. It's a testament to the strength of what is a relatively young gaming genre that developers have the room to experiment with it like this, especially considering the genre itself borrows so many elements from other game types like tower defense, RPGs and real-time strategy. It's also healthy for gaming genres to have a spectrum of accessibility. For example, Risk and Europa Universalis are both strategy games, but one is massively more complex than the other, and there's a vast range of games that fit between the two. Most MOBAs, meanwhile, currently boil down to either impenetrable and terrifying, or slightly less impenetrable and terrifying, with barely enough space between them to slide a sheet of paper. Although Heroes of the Storm is currently only an alpha, hardcore fans of the MOBA genre are even now already bitching and moaning about it on the internet. Some are calling it a casual shitfest and other horrible names, and generally considering it an affront to everything they hold dear about the genre, while others, a bit more open-minded, are happy to see a MOBA trying something a bit different and new, and which may actually bring in new players. What they should be arguing, of course, is whether it's any fun or not. And we won't officially have an answer for that until the game is fully released, although, for what I've seen of it so far, the answer looks to be a strong yes. One thing we can all be sure of, however, is that it doesn't need a god-awful background story written by Chris Metzen. That's all for this episode of Pixel Burn. If you liked it, please do let me know. At the very least, I hope you found it tolerable. And if you didn't like it, well, I'm sorry for taking up precious time better spent playing Titanfall, Dark Souls 2 or Hearthstone. Actually, I'm not sorry in the slightest, but you can still go now.